Hello, I'm Charlie Miranda from Tampa City Council District 2, and you're watching Tampa Big Community Network.
Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and I have literally one of my very favorite guests here, and thank you, Mary, his assistant, for getting him here. Charlie Miranda, District 2 at large, Tampa City Council.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's a big mouthful.
Well, it's you got to enjoy what you do, and any job you do, no matter if it's elected official or whatever job you do, and if you don't like it, life is too short.
Charlie, one of the things that I really felt bad about was that a while back, in fact, it's probably been a year or two, you had a baseball game going with the Cubans and then fell sick, and I didn't get to go along. Not to sickness, but to the game.
Let me tell you, it seems like a year, but it's really in 2011.
5 years ago?
The team went November of 2011, and we practiced for about 3 months, and we got fit, and we didn't play fellas our age. We pay fathers of high school players who were in their mid-40s.
Wow.
And we had 6 games of practice before they went to Cuba, and they won 3 and lost 3, so I knew they were prepared to go.
I would have loved to have gone. You go there on a regular basis.
Yes, sir.
A couple of times a year.
Yes, sir.
And you've been doing this for some period of time
Right.
now. What changes are you seeing on the island? I know this doesn't have anything to do at the moment with Tampa, but it will.
It's a change of anything that you see when you had zero or very little tourism. And now last year they had 3.1 million. This year they're projecting 4.1 million visitors. I'm saying they're going to do more than that. It becomes problematic because the system of transportation, the system of growth of food is not prepared for that. And therefore it's hard. Sometimes there's a scarcity of commodities, not because they don't have it, because they have too many people using that commodity. And it'll get straightened out, and hopefully they can continue to communicate with the United States and have a better understanding between the two nations.
So is it changing? I said I'd like to get there before it becomes just one Caribbean nation like the rest of them.
I don't think you're going to see the McDonald's to any numbers of them. I don't think you're going to see that type of food service. If they leave it unique, if they live Havana Vieja, the old Havana like it is, and they leave things like they are and spruce them up, in my opinion, and have their own little niche of the world with little restaurants and things of that nature, they'll be a big hit. If you make it commercial, then you're just another commercial place.
Another t-shirt shop.
I think it'll happen, but it'll happen slowly. It'll happen with great concentration on both sides. And the investment dollar has to be guaranteed, and there's where the problems lie.
We now have another airline, I think it's Southwest, that's flying into Cuba, back and forth, out of here, which is a real coup, I think, for our airport. Joe Lopano has done an outstanding job over there, at least in my opinion.
I'm under the understanding, and again, I'm under the understanding that sometime in mid-November, there'd be no more charter flights. They're all going to be from Southwest, JetBlue, American, and Delta. Those are the 4,
all of them are going to be going
all
back
of them are going to be going. That's my understanding. And they'll be servicing cities from Havana all the way to the other side of the island, which is really about 700-800 miles away. So you'll be able to take a flight to 3 or 4 destinations. Varadero Beach in fact, Varadero Beach has more passengers to that airport than Havana because it's a resort area.
Oh. Now, let's look at Tampa as a trading partner for Cuba. This should make something good for our economy here, should it not?
In fact, it goes back 100 years or so. In fact, when the teams played, Cuba used to be called the Havana Cubans.
I know you're old, but you weren't on the 100-year-old
No, I
team.
wasn't. I started it, but I didn't. I wasn't around. And the Tampa had the Tampa Smokers. But when Cuba reorganized its baseball in 1954, they came back as the Havana Sugar Canes. Why? They produce a lot of sugar.
Yes.
And Tampa was called the Tampa Smokers. Why? Because Tampa was producing more cigars in Tampa than the whole island of Cuba. So therefore, the smokers and the sugar canes, and they were the top two teams in the Florida State League.
The cigars that we had here in Tampa, was that tobacco coming up from Cuba?
A great majority of that tobacco was imported from Cuba, and they made the finest cigars in the world and the finest leaves in the world because of the soil and the productivity that they had. And it's a shame it's not there no more for us to enjoy here, but it'll be coming. Now I see when I first started going to Cuba, you were not allowed to bring one cigar or any kind of alcohol, rum. Now you can bring 2 and 2, and now they change it where you can bring 4 and 50 or 60, I forget. They used to have a venue of $100 limit and 400 in total things. Now it's changing. I don't know what the changes are because I haven't flown there in a while, but I think that it's greater than just 30 cigars. It's maybe 100 cigars, I don't know.
Trade will be good for us here, and it'll be good for them too.
People have to have on trade. When we started this country, it was called bartering. You'd sell me something and I'd sell you something, but it wasn't on money. It was what your need and what my needs were. And when you have two countries that really haven't spoken for each other for almost 60 years, and the people start to cook, the governments don't change. The people make the government change by communication and sharing of ideas and things of that nature. So it's beneficial for more Americans to go so that the Cuban people can understand that there's another life different than theirs. And that's what it's all about. And we understand their life and they understand our life.
Well, I think it's important, like when we went to China, it was great talking to the Chinese people directly.
I didn't know you spoke that language.
Well, actually they speak.
Oh, I see.
I can say shay shay, which is thank you. I always try to learn thank you. But one of the things that I found when I went over there was it isn't anything like our news media and our politicians want us to believe. Those people sought us out. We got tired of Chinese food after a while. And by the way, it is not the ABC, American-born Chinese, that we eat. It's a whole different Chinese food. And we got tired after a while, so we went to McDonald's. And as soon as the people that evening heard us speaking English, they surrounded Phyllis and I and wanted to talk about where we were from and all that. It was really cool. And I suspect the same thing will happen with our friends down in Cuba.
There's going to be some changes. You know, one finger can point north, the other finger can point south. But if the two fingers never touch, there's no communication.
True.
And life in general is about being able to communicate. And that's the only way that you understand how the world thrives.
Well, I can say gracias also. So I got thank you covered in that language too. All right, let's talk about our city here in Tampa. I hope you didn't mind my digression.
No, not at all.
I think you're one of the people that I actually trust to tell me what's going on down there. What's happening in Tampa? What are the things you're most interested in? What are the things that you're seeing that, with your long experience, need to be done?
Well, let me say this. City of Tampa, through its effort for many years and many mayors, has positioned itself to have one thing that most cities don't have. South of Atlanta, if you go all the way south of Atlanta, down the middle of the state of Florida, City of Tampa is the only one that has the capabilities of supplying the water and supplying the tertiary treatment that you need to have more than any city in that whole vast area. We still have capacity for 30 million gallons a day of tertiary treatment at the plant, at the Howard Current plant, and the David Tippett plant, along with other things that we have, can certainly supply more water. City of Tampa is trying to...
Tertiary.
Tertiary is what you flush down the bath or the tub or the toilet,
okay,
and it goes down. And
sewer.
It's sewer. You're correct. I'm just doing the proper word on it. But what happens is this. When you get there and you see what happens to that water, how it comes in and how it goes out, you say, this is unbelievable. You can drop a dime from 18 feet out and watch a dime go all the way down. Yeah, you get a dime, you drop it in the Hillsborough River, you won't see it for 6 inches.
Well, that's true.
The river water is clean, but it's not the purest. We have to purify it. City of Tampa does an outstanding job in purifying river water. City of Tampa is prepared in those two areas, and those are the two areas that you need to have when you have people coming in. We are projected to have about a 40% increase in population.
40?
40 in the next 25 years. So I won't be around, but you will. And these are the things that are set to...
Thank you, Charlie.
To
no, that ain't going to happen either.
Well, it's going to happen, and we have to prepare. So my deal is to work with the mayor's office and others to make sure that those two areas are there, because if they're not, then you can't grow. On the growth side, we've had so much growth lately, and there was, like Mayor Buckhorn said, there was 600 people living downtown, and 300 of them lived in jail. And that's how it was when we had years ago. Now you got maybe 9,000 people living downtown, and I think it's going to quadruple in the next 3 or 4 years. You have all these high-rise apartment buildings. Some are condos, some are apartment buildings.
That's good, though, isn't it?
It's very good. But along with that, we live in a city that's over 100 years old, that the road work was already there, and you can't change the road work. So you're going to have more traffic, gridlock in traffic. Not that we want it that way, not that they're not trying to plan for that way, but what do you do with them? You have to have some type of mass transit. You have to have units of the city where you can have a walkable community, and you don't need a car to go to the grocery store. Or
That's what prevents me. I live in Sun City Center, and that's what prevents me from coming to the center city, is I know that a good share of the time, I-275 is a parking lot.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because when I first started in politics, or it was a one word that you don't hear no more. You haven't heard this word in 10 years, called sprawl. They say, oh, you can't build that. That's sprawl. It's too far out. And every time they tell you that, the population in the county areas gets bigger and bigger. But they don't use sprawl no more. So what is it? The congestion, yeah, happens in the city because we got 30-some thousand people coming every day to work, and they got to go in and go out. But if everybody lived in the city, you wouldn't have that problem, because you would have what I just said, communities built on the availability that you don't need a car other than to go to the beach or to go somewhere else, but your car wouldn't be used for 10,000 miles. Now you do that, in 2 months you drive it that far, because you got to go 40 miles one way and this and the other.
Yeah, it's like living in New York City.
Exactly right. But we don't have the subways. We don't have the transit. We don't have the rail system. Those things have got to happen in order to create some easing of the traffic. Notice I said it ain't going to solve it. You'll have an easing of the traffic. And those are the things got to happen. A lot of cities in the north, when I used to work with the horse tracks and all that, when I got there, I had to pay a special tax to use their roads. They gave me a right, I had a permit on the car. I paid $40, $50, whatever it was. So for that time, I was using the roads, I paid for it. We don't have that. And there's a lot of, I'm not saying we should have it, I'm saying we don't have those things. But we're getting to the point where something is going to have to happen. Some individuals are going to have to convince the legislature to give the cities, if they want it, if Tampa, St. Pete, and Clearwater want to get together and build a tram or rail from Tampa International Airport through downtown, up Howard Franklin to the airport, Albert Whitted, to St. Pete, downtown St. Clearwater, do a circle and come back. That's the only way you're going to solve some of that traffic problem. We can't do it on submarines. You can't fly them over there. How are you going to get them there? So it's got to be something done that's innovative. I believe that roundabout ways, the State Department of Transportation done a good job. However, there's some things that they think about that are just unthinkable. Let's get Howard Franklin and make a one-lane pay and,
A millionaire lane.
Well, it's not the millionaire lane, and you do the math. If I had the airport and I have 5 daily flights going to New York and they're full, I'm going to say I'm going to solve the problem by sending only 4.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
But the millionaire get to work faster because they can afford to pay for the lane.
In the beginning, then they'll all be full.
Well, it's true. People get used to things. I feel that same way about the new quote unquote, toll road coming down. The toll road right now, when you get on in Brandon and you want to go off at 674 or at 275, I forget how much money it is just for that short distance. It's ridiculous.
Problem is that you can't handle it on Animal Drive. You can't handle it in other areas. So they're trying to make something that's maybe, but transportation doesn't work. You got buses that want to work, but they're so big that they're empty. Cut them in half, have twice, do something different so that the public says,
well, you pointed out earlier while we were talking though, Charlie, you don't want to ride a bus.
Well, I haven't ridden a bus since I was 16 years old. My 3 kids have never ridden a bus. My 8 grandchildren have never ridden a bus. And if all the viewers that are watching you just think what we're saying, they haven't ridden a bus either.
Not very many of us.
Because it's not convenient. They run every so often. If you had twice the buses and you knew you were going to get a ride, you'd go. One thing about Cuba, you can't get in a bus because they're full.
Really?
You know why?
It's the only transportation they have?
That's one way, but the common folk doesn't have the money to buy a car. So I quit riding when I was 16. Why? Because I bought me a car. But I rode the bus all the time, bus 3 and bus 4. So all those things, it's the same thing coming back around. When I'm in Cuba and I walk the streets, I feel like I'm 10 years old. I feel like I'm in Ybor City when I was a kid growing up. And these are the things that I shares about the country. Sure, there's things that I don't like, but there's things remind me when I was a little boy. And these are the things that are going on. And this city is going to grow whether I want it or not, whether the public wants it or not. And the biggest concern we're going to have is getting people moved. It's called transportation. If not, we're going to have gridlock.
I'm not a real fan of toll roads.
Well, neither am I.
I think we build roads for people to be able to drive on. And just like we have public education, we have all these different things. I really don't like toll roads. I just build them and we'll pay for them. Everybody will pay for them. And if they do it right, we'll also have a good tram system, a light rail, whatever. It just was so silly to me when I look at our airport and I look at the one over in Orlando. A high-speed connection between the two would seem to me to benefit both.
Well, we could have had that almost.
Yeah,
it was turned down.
Except for this governor,
Well,
who decided to build another one over there that isn't working and isn't paying for itself, even though this one was supposed to.
But, life is what it is, and sometimes you and I didn't make the mistake, but we take the responsibility for it.
Let's talk about water.
All right.
All right? There's nobody in town knows more about water and plumbing and our pipes than you do. How are we doing when it comes to that?
We're doing relatively well. I said relatively because we also have an aging system underground that some pipes are 80, 90 years old, and certainly we do have a program where we do so many miles a year, but what happens, you do so many miles a year, and right behind that, the ones that were 70 are now 80 years old. So it's a constant changeover. The pipes that are laying now are much built to last longer, but we've done a very good job. We don't have the amount of leakage. Maybe we have a 1% where it used to be 15% many 20 years ago. So we've got that down to almost nothing. The water department does a fantastic job at Howard Tippin. They pump out about 82 million gallons on the average a day, and it's working very well. We have one of the finest waters around. You don't need to buy a water bottle. You can bottle it yourself at the house. That's how good it is.
That's what we do.
And that's what I do. And we're prepared for growth, and without that, you couldn't have it. But growth does help. Everybody's sharing in the tax base and so forth, but it also brings the concept of you need more schools, you need more better transportation, you need a quality of life. And the people are always looking for different things. And in my mind, they want education, they want the crime rate to be low. That's acceptable. And we come here not because I'm elected, not because the mayor is elected, not because the other 6 council members are elected. We come here because we only have 2 seasons. Do you know what they are? I'll tell you what they are. Christmas and summer. And the people north, as harsh winter, you have an influx moving in. There's over 800 people a day move to Florida. So
are we back up to that?
Yeah. So we're going to have to be prepared for it. And things that are way out are going to seem like they're right next door in the next 20 years because the people are going to come here in that amount of time. Hillsborough County will be one of the largest growing areas in Florida. Pinellas is kind of flat because they're built out. Pasco has growth, and Hillsborough County is going to almost double in size.
Wow.
So you better
It's
get
already
ready.
huge.
It's already huge.
I talked to my friends in the sheriff's department, and they're just
It's very hard.
amazed at the number of places coming up that
Right.
they've got to police.
That used to be called sprawl in the old days. Now they don't mention it at all. Yeah.
What about stormwater?
Stormwater is doing well.
We had a big problem with Pinellas County and with the city of St. Petersburg dumping sewerage into the bay.
That's caused because of leaky pipes, leaky underground. They closed one of the sewer systems without having adequate, and the other two to clean out the sludge and things that were going in. However, any city, and I'm not here to protect St. Pete or talk bad. The facts are that any city, including ours, if you have a hurricane come through and you dump 10 zillion gallons of water, that tertiary treatment plant could handle it because it's built for 96 million gallons a day. They can clean that much out, but what happens, you have so much more coming in that it can't handle. The pipes then overflow, and you see a manhole cover that's a little bit smaller than this table that weighs about 200 pounds just pop up out of the ground because of the pressure of the water is greater than the weight that's on the top of it. And those things do happen, and when that happens, you're going to have some minute sewer. St. Pete has known that they've had this problem for some time and have failed to address it to some degree. But we're fixed for it. The stormwater system in Tampa, I did not vote for it. Not that I didn't want to, but I looked at what was in front of me. It was a $251 million fix. The only problem with that is I remember 20 years back when I was in office, and Dick Greco's administration had done an estimate, and at that time was $1 billion. So how can 251 fix what cost $1 billion then? Is it going to help? Yeah, but all it does is changes the size of the pipe from this size to this size, and the water is maintained in the volume underground going out. There's only one problem. I cannot control the incoming tide. When you have a surge of the tide and an incoming tide and a surge and a wind surge, that means that the water in the bay is higher than the water going out. It'll hit that, this volume of water is bigger, and as much more force that was coming in, it's going to go right back out where it came from. And I'm not an engineer, but I try to be realistic. I try to fix, the government should have fixed the problems that they had individual, not say everything is going to be fixed. Everything, in my estimate, will not be fixed. They'll fix the things that are needed, and the more volume of people that we have, the more high rises, even though they're supposed to contain, in theory, all of the runoff water, it creates a problem.
Well, it'll put more pressure on the system.
It has to.
I mean, from a sewerage standpoint especially.
We're prepared. We still got 30 million gallon capacity at the Howard Current plant. So we got 10, 15 years left before we start looking, what are we going to do now?
We better start looking now at
well, we are.
the way it is to get it done.
We are.
What would you do if you had a magic wand to make Tampa a better place right now? Or even plant seeds for future?
If I had a magic wand, I would pass it over and says, there's no illness among people. Everybody's cured of what they have. And I think that's the greatest thing anybody can do. If you give everybody the right to find a job, the right to do work, and never have an illness, you'd have one hell of a world.
Would certainly make a major difference.
It would make a major difference.
What about jobs in Tampa? What are we doing to see that those 40% population increases actually have some place to work? Are we looking at retirees?
No, what happens is, as you well know, if you have a small city, you have limited opportunities. As it gets bigger and bigger, businesses create, innovation comes in, technology comes in, but you also have things that you need. Hotels, restaurants, tire shops. It creates an ambience, and it's a spinover of a dollar going here and you spending your dollar that you earn, and I'm doing the same thing, and the other one, and it creates, look at this mall. This mall looks, today I walked the mall and it looks beautiful inside. I think this mall is going to make a big comeback. I walked around, I was very, very pleasantly surprised.
I've been coming now for, I don't know, 10 years, whatever here, and it's this University Mall, that's the one we're talking about and the one we film in, is an absolutely beautiful place.
It's beautiful.
The food
I walked
court's
around it.
got
They had
some
all
good
kinds of
food.
stores. They got Macy's. They got a dealer discount. They got all kind of men and women's specialty shops. They got some nice restaurants to eat. The outside, you got 2 brand new restaurants outside. When I drove by, I thought I was in Del Mabry. It is just very nice, and you're cleaning out the outside and doing some changes. Whoever bought this mall is doing a fantastic job. You should be congratulated.
Well, I think the whole neighborhood is rising.
It's all, and it'll come back. It'll be back. But it takes time, because you can't just have a wand to fix everything.
Are there any other things that you see coming up that the council is going to have to put a lot of work into?
Well, the council works on, it's a check and balance system. And the mayor, whoever he or she is, certainly has their own agenda. That's how they got elected, by telling the public what they want to do and how they're going to do it. And then it's up to the council to make sure that within those parameters.
So how are you going to pay for that?
How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to do this? I'm a physical conservative. I'm a liberal at heart, and I have a struggle with myself because one part's telling me one thing and the other part's saying, whoa, let's not get too far in debt, because that's what happens with not that we're there, we're nowhere near there, let me clear that. But I don't want the city to be in debt to any large degree where you can't pay your retirees their retirement check and things of that nature. And we're very well funded in fire and police and general employees. We got a very high rating on all those, and they're in the 90 percentile, 96 percentile of funding that's needed for years to come. But it'll come to the point where there'll be much more retirees. As life goes on and medicine gets better and treatment gets better, you live longer. And the longer you live, the more of a paycheck you get from retirees. And I hope to live forever. But that's the problem that faces us and any other government.
I don't know if I'll make that 40 years that you're talking about.
Well, why don't you promise me to be there, and I'll be right next to you.
Will you be there with me?
I'll be right
and you'll
there.
keep coming back and visiting with me.
I'll do it.
I find it interesting when I look at our area that there is so much going on. New things, new people, new companies coming in. And I suspect I've got to give the governor his due. He's put a lot of effort into jobs. Not one of my favorite people.
Jobs.
Full disclaimer there, but
There was just an article, and I didn't read the whole article. I didn't have time. The St. Pete Times wrote a 2-page article, very well written, and very well. Somebody spent a lot of time, and they talked about the jobs, and they talked about the jobs that came in, the jobs that were held, and that they're no longer there, what they paid. And what's happening is that the jobs that are coming in are good, but some of the jobs are minimum wage jobs, most of them. I really believe that the minimum wage should be raised, not because I want to, because we have to. Everybody has a right to be able to live and rent someplace. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but when you have a job and you're making, let's say $8.25 an hour, and your rent's $1,000 a month, you can't make it. There's no way you can make it.
I totally agree with you. I do have a problem with it, in that if we make the wage $15, somebody's going to raise prices.
Well, you said $15. I didn't.
Well, no, I say, but I'm just saying, whatever amount, if we make it 10, 12,
going
whatever.
up. It's got to be in an upgoing scale. I'm for a wage increase, and it's got to be more than what we're paying now, because they can't make it. And when you can't make it, it brings a deterioration of the neighborhood. They can't paint the house. They can't fix the plumbing. The air conditioner breaks. Now they got windows up. The windows break, and all of a sudden they move out. And what I got left, a slum. So you have to give somebody who wants to work, pay them what they earn. A lot of times I see people that are not making it, and they're trying to make the best they can, and they're suffering.
Well, you know, a majority of people want that. They want to work. They want to earn a living. There's no question in my mind. I have to wonder how we're going to do it. I went back to, how are you going to pay for that? You know,
the problem is that if you look at all the other countries in the world, and I'm not trying to be like any other country, we are a very young country, 240 years old. And what's happening to us, it's new, because it happened to the rest of the world for thousands of years.
Absolutely.
So these things come about and change in this country because of the gratitude of the states being united. And that word united should always remain.
Exactly.
I see more and more people want to crack it. America is great because it stands with itself.
And it is great.
And it is
already.
Great. It's already great.
Charlie, thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure.
You know, you really need to come back and we'll have a whole program
Anytime
on
you
minimum
want.
wage. I'd love to discuss that
We'll
with
do
you. I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often, because you are, you know. And Charlie Miranda.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it
District
very
2
much.
at large, Tampa City Council. You're always one of my festo guests, and tell Mary thanks for sending me.
I'll tell her. Thank you very much.